If you are on the forefront of security and are using a password manager, well, you're probably vulnerable to an attack affecting almost all of them. Thanks for checking out this video by Switch to Linux. If you like this type of content, leave a like and a comment down below. Also subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. And we will be talking a little bit about password managers today. Of course, we should be using a password manager, although who knows, a little black book hidden somewhere in your house might be a little bit better in some instances. You know, you have a greater chance of being cyber hacked than you have than being, actually robbed, of course, depending on where you live. But nevertheless, having a password manager is something that people should definitely consider, allowing you to store all of your passwords. I recommend that you use KeePass XC. This one here is an offline password manager. Yes, it might be a little bit more inconvenient to have to manage a password manager and then redeploy this across, your devices, which most people might have a laptop and a phone these days. You can use KeePass, I think it's DX, I think. Now, that does not support passkeys, which KeePass does. And I think it supports TOTP, but I can't remember that one off the top. But as far as your basic passwords, you can get that managed over there. Now, of course, there are a lot of online password managers. I am not an advocate of online password managers. Like, you're talking about one centralized database of all of your passwords on the internet. Talk about a target. And LastPass was breached and people stole all the archives, and they have them. And if they somehow manage to crack those things and sometime going forward, they will have everything that's in there. Hopefully you've changed your passwords from that breach. Bitwarden is the only one I would probably trust if you did have to use an online one. The advantage, of course, with your online password managers is that you can they're a single online place. So if you're using a phone, a computer, multiple different devices, even a friend's computer, you could always get in there and access all of your passwords from the internet. I'm not a huge fan of that personally. I would do that by throwing my KeePass XC file up into my Nextcloud account or something like that. But even that, I don't like my passwords on the internet, so I don't even do that. That being said, there have been some vulnerabilities found in some of these, as a report from DEFCON showed us. So TechRadar did the initial article we want to have a look at, but we're actually going to go and read the actual hacker's post, because it has a lot more information in it than this has. So it boils down mostly to clickjacking attacks, which have been solved in some instances. The challenge is that it has not been solved in most of the browser integration means that nearly every one of these password managers use. So the researcher here is Market Toth, and I hope I pronounced that name correctly, but he looks at exploits in the biggest password managers. The attack is able to steal passwords, 2FA codes, credit card details, and other information that you store inside of there. He tested it on 1Password, Bitwarden, NPass, iCloud passwords, LastPass, LogMeOnce, and he actually tested a lot more than that. Almost all of these in the same script can be used to harvest from almost all of them. It deals with utilizing transparent overlays and the fact that every single password manager does its validation based on the TLD domain. It ignores subdomains unless you explicitly configure them. This can be a problem because, as we talked about, one of the government sites, was it the CDC maybe? They actually had a hacker was able to get in there and create a bunch of subdomains that had been previously, or they had used a bunch of subdomains that had previously been abandoned but not removed from their global DNS settings. And so anybody who knew those were open would be able to set those up with a server onto something like an AWS, a Linode, something like that, and then those would basically become live. So you could literally have a means that you could steal password and credentials, and some of these breaches was able to scrape your entire database, although that was an older bug from one particular password manager. This is actually the terrifying table here. So you can see Bitwarden, it's protected in passkeys. That's good news. Dashlane appeared to be the best overall. This was the most protected one. And some of them, like LastPass, LogMeIn, RoboForm. Yeah, these were completely breachable in all of this. So I was curious, did they have anything to do with KeePass XC, which is the one I use, and sadly, in the latest version, which is the browser extension, which is not even pushed out to Firefox yet, is still vulnerable. So Firefox version is it 1991? And I think the Chromium-based version is 1992. Both of those are still vulnerable to 2 of these particular breaches. So having a look at it, he's looking at extension clickjacking, and we're not going to go through the entirety of the article because it is large. As you can see, this is just the table of contents, but he looks at the various ways that these are done. He looks at parent elements, overlays, extension elements, and things like that. And so here we'll look at the key information. So it's a new clickjacking technique that utilizes UI elements, basically setting transparency to 0 and targeting your click. And then if you click anywhere on the page, it is registering a click to autofill things from the password manager. So you land on a page and you get a giant overlay, subscribe to our newsletter. I got to click to get out of this thing. Well, that click could have just copied all of your password information into the hacker's approach. If they had either gotten compromised JavaScript onto your site, which is something we commonly see in out-of-date WordPress installs among other systems. But we also see that type of thing if your server happens to be breached, any form of CMS type site, if your database server is breached and they throw an injection into a database, this is the type of stuff that can cause this to happen. He's selected 11 password managers that are used as browser extensions, and the result was that all were vulnerable. All were vulnerable to DOM-based extension clickjacking. Tens of millions of users could be at risk. A single click anywhere on the attacker's website could leak credit card details, including security codes. 6 out of 9 were vulnerable, or exfiltrates stored personal information. 8 out of 10 were vulnerable. All password managers filled credentials not only to the main domain, but also the subdomains. That's my biggest gripe with these password managers. I'm doing a lot of build-out sites on subdomains because I'll build out when I'm building a site for a client. I build it out on a subdomain on my dev server so I can show them, well, it becomes almost impossible to use the password manager without changing all of the settings to go with the absolute precise TLD, not just the domain. Because if I go to cloud.mydomain.com, it registers that as a password the same as mydomain.com. That is stupid. Okay, they should not do that, but every one of them does. So all password managers fill credentials not just to the main domain, but all subdomains. Attacker could easily find XSS or other vulnerabilities, steal the user's stored credentials with a single click. 10 out of 11. TOTP codes, 9 out of 11. And in some scenarios, passkey authentication could be exploited. 8 out of 11. All vulnerabilities were reported in April 2025 with a notice that the public disclosure would be in August of 2025. Some vendors have still not fixed the described vulnerability. Bitwarden, 1Password, iCloud Passwords, NPass, LastPass, LogMeIn-Once. Users of these password managers may still be at risk. So yes, even Bitwarden. For Chromium-based browsers, it's recommended to configure the site access to on-click extension settings. This configuration allows users to manually control autofill. And the described technique, in general, I only tested on 11 password managers. Other DOM manipulating extensions are probably also vulnerable. So password managers, crypto wallets, notes, etc. Now, before we get into it, I'm going to talk briefly. I use KeePass XC, as I said. I only use the browser extension on one computer, which I've been doing for 6 months as a test to see how well it works. Otherwise, on all of my other devices, I'll just boot up KeePass XC, copy the credentials, and paste them into the appropriate form. That, by the way, is your master fix. That always works. That will get around all these vulnerabilities, because all of these vulnerabilities are utilizing the browser extension to fill in hidden elements on the page. All right. So looking at, he talks here about the intrusive web elements. So cookie consent banners, newsletter pop-ups, login dialogues, web push notifications, Cloudflare challenge posts. Every single one of these could be faked by an attacker, forcing you to click anywhere, or even including the X to close that window, that one click is enough to exploit this vulnerability across the board. So they mentioned down here the Cloudflare challenge passes are 1 to 3 clicks, allowing them to steal more information. And looking at the web applications, here's the various password managers they initially did the testing, or these were the ones that were listed in the best password managers for 2025. And they were all vulnerable. Yeah, sorry. Okay. He also throws iCloud password managers into the list because it is used by a lot of people. And he did use that as the browser extension on Chrome or Firefox. He did not use it as the system application for Safari integration. So he did not test that feature. Password managers have autofill functionalities that can be 0-click or manual autofill. So KeePass XC does warn you about doing the 0-click. It allows you to do it. You have to explicitly select it, and they say not recommended because it will land on a page and automatically fill out the information. That will make you immediately susceptible to whatever this breach is. However, if it's a manual autofill, you still have to click, and if you click anywhere on the page, the browser extension will still auto-populate the hidden UI elements with the malicious code. So he's describing 2 methods, the iframe-based and the DOM-based. The iframe-based generally pulls out from different URLs, so you're generally safe from iframe-based. But the DOM-based examples are where you hide hidden elements, which you can easily control with JavaScript or CSS files. And so here he's showing with 4 clicks, it's possible to share all items from a password manager. So with a 0 opacity, so the user doesn't even know what's going on, simply clicking this Cloudflare button will pull this up. Oh, it didn't load. Let's reload it. This is 2 clicks. Now we got to grab this puzzle piece, put it in place. This is 3 clicks. And then now you need to click the verify button. There's your 4 clicks. With those 4 clicks, they have programmed their hidden code in here to harvest everything. So here he's running the same software with a transparency set at 0.5, allowing you to see what's going on in the background. Okay, so this is going on in the background. They've literally launched the code, the application. They've just copied all of your stuff with the first click. On the second click, it copies everything. And then it's over here's the third click. I think it's when it clicks in. It goes ahead and shares everything with this random user from the malicious hacker. And then the fourth click confirms the share. So now what he's able to do is he's able to show you that going into the attacker's page, they were actually able to share all passwords in that password manager with that particular user, and there's no notification about it. So that's how that's working. Now, that was a vulnerability that he had fixed based on clickjacking a while back. But the new one here is a lot different because it's not utilizing those external codes. It's all going internally. So here he's, this is what the user would see. It's all transparent. This is at full opacity and this is at half opacity. So you can kind of see what's going on in the background. You think you're clicking over here to fill in a username, but what's really happening is your username and password is being filled into an invisible element that you don't even see. So here, before you continue to Google, you got to reject all or accept all. We've all seen this page. Well, that click on and thrown up on a malicious site is enough to get you in to put all of your passwords, or at least the password for this particular site, into their form. So now they have the password. So they're using a specific DOM element to make the UI invisible but clickable. So by default, if the opacity is set at 0, it is not clickable, but you can actually change that with JavaScript. So what they were doing here is making it almost invisible enough that you'd have to have really weird contrast to actually see it. They were using like 0.001 opacity, and that was generally enough to get it to work. But any form of these pop-ups would all be enough to cause the code to work to access what you're doing. So there's partial overlays, which is where you're overlaying the elements entirely. Full overlays, I'm sorry, the partials where it's partially overlaying elements. Full overlay is where the entire web page is completely taken up. And then there's positions. Here's the password manager tests. So with this particular test, which one was this one? The position test. The one password, Bitwarden, and Dashlane were protected against this. Everything else vulnerable across the board. So here is looking at credit card versus personal data. Dashlane was the best one here. 1Password protect against credit cards. This is because 1Password always has a pop-up box verifying you want to copy the credit card data. But as the person running this report said, it is not a clearly worded pop-up. He had that pop up somewhere. This is what it says. Okay to fill your 1Password item on the site. Okay. So it's not clarifying what is being said or stated or whatever else. And so let's go down and have a look. Here's your website vulnerability with XSS. Yeah, you can see that's messed up. And let's get down to the bottom, because I want to look at password managers vulnerabilities versus fixed information. So again, RoboForm fixed, Proton Pass fixed, NordPass fixed, Keeper fixed, Dashlane fixed, 1Password, Bitwarden, NPass, iCloud passwords, LastPass, log me in once, not fixed, and no email reply. I would definitely avoid log me in once. They have informative on 1Password, so they're alerting people to it. Bitwarden, they are working on it. NPass is working on it. iCloud is working on it. LastPass fixed the credit card and personal data, and they have informed about what's going on with login, TOTP, and passkeys. All right, so as far as fixed status, these are the ones that are still vulnerable. 1Password, and this is update. These are all updated as of today when I'm recording the video. Actually, that would be yesterday because I'm releasing this video tomorrow from when I'm recording it. So August 22nd, current update, latest version of 1Password is vulnerable on a parent overlay and on parent element and on the overlays. And here is a video about how it works. So they're coming over here, and let's have a look. So they click on, okay, they get the little button here, confirm you're a human. Boom. You get logged in. It looks like it was an Amazon. Hey, when to spin the wheel. Look at that. Wonderful. I've never seen that when to spin the wheel. Not that I would want it anyway. Congratulations. Enter your email address. Yeah, see, this is a fake site. It's stealing more stuff from you. And so there you go. It's get my amount. There you go. And there you go. So there he's showing you that it was able to go in there and steal the information. There's a credit card stuff. So everything was in there. So Bitwarden, the latest, is still vulnerable on the overlay method. And so they have triaged it. So they're working on it. iCloud passwords, this one is still vulnerable on the overlay method. LastPass is vulnerable on extension element, parent element, and overlay. Log me in once, same things. KeyPass XC extension and overlay, and this is with the latest. Now, like I said, the browser extension I have on my system right now is 1991 on Mozilla, on Firefox. And I did double check. There does not appear to be an update. The latest on Firefox seems to be 1991. It looks like 1992 was released on the Chromium-based browsers, but both of those are still vulnerable. So here's how this works here. Did he update this video? Oh yeah. Okay. So this is the older video. Let me actually show you the newer video here, because he has where is it at? This is the video. This is the full video he did with the latest one. So this update was just today, 1992, KeyPass XC team, and it looks like this is Firefox, but maybe it's because I'm using an ARM system. That's possible. So here is the overlay. So with the transparency, and you can see it's able to harvest the data and information from KeyPass XC. So that unfortunately is still there. The following ones are fixed. So the current version, this fixed version of Dashlane is 62531.1. and this was fixed in early August. NPass was fixed. Keeper was fixed, so note these version numbers if you're using any of these. NordPass, ProtonPass, and RoboForm, those have all been fixed. And he does have demo sites, so if you want to test out your password credentials and see how it works, you can go ahead and test those out by clicking on the sites. He does talk some limitations. The limitations of this is the lockout. I know with my computer, if the screen goes to sleep, so the system goes to sleep, it locks the password manager, and you would have to reset the browser extension in order to do that. So that's good. As far as mitigation, they're kind of talking about what can be done. And then recommendations for users. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on this. So first and foremost, any form of the autofill, whether it's the one-click or the autofill, that is what causes the vulnerability. So if you're using password managers, until your particular password manager is breached, it is highly recommended you either go on only very, very trusted sites, or you get rid of the browser extension entirely and manually enter in your stuff. Now, what do I mean by manually? It's not manually type in your password. It's in my case, use KeePassXC, hit the copy username, paste the copy username in, hit the copy password button, paste the password in, and yes, that is protected on those from clipboard use. And so not a perfect solution, but it does work. That is the biggest thing to do, is stop using the extensions until your extensions are patched for this. So check you have automatic updates and that you're using the latest versions. Again, take note of those version numbers and keep an eye on your particular password managers to make sure that they are not vulnerable. Disable manual autofill. The good news is most of these, well, okay, I can't say most of them. I haven't used most of them. KeePassXC does not have automatic autofill turned on, and it warns you against using that, but gives you the option. It is highly advisable to not use automatic autofill. Many password managers allow disabling it. It can be inconvenient for some. For me, I like it because it's not a massive inconvenient. First, I have to explain how it works on mine. First, I have to connect the browser extension to KeePassXC. Okay, that's first step. Second step, I have to have the password manager unlocked. And then third step is I actually have to, every single time I go to a site, I have to either approve it one time or remember the approval. So I might get a pop-up every time to say, hey, would you like KeePassXC to make this website accessible to the password manager? So if you click that button and then you can automatically remember that so you don't have to keep doing it. Now it still does not auto fill in for me. It still does not auto log in for me. I have a KeePass icon in the username field, and if I click on that, it will automatically fill things in from there. So it still requires that click. But that's how I have mine set up. So disable manual autofill, set the only exact URL match. This one was a pain. I was noticing issues with it. It's like, how do you do this? I can't remember if you had to do that on a per site basis or if it was everywhere. I'd highly recommend you set that to only remember the password only on the exact URL of the application, which might be login.application.com or whatever that is. But setting those exact, I think it's a huge risk for all of these password managers to allow anything of that domain to access the password, because you might have, in my case, I have multiple different services on my main company domain. Well, I might have different resources for this one versus this one versus this one. And I do not want the password manager to pop up every time I enter some subdomain.company.com. I don't need it to pop that up. So turning on that exact URL match is a good step. And then such a hybrid solution can be a manual in the manual control autofill. So that's kind of what I'm doing already. And then Chromium-based browsers, they say on click. Let's see, what's this one here? Let me read this again. Hybrid solution can be in manual control autofill. This is exactly what I'm doing it. He says he's unable to find the setting from Mozilla Firefox, but this is exactly how mine works. So with the setting, the browser extension will not access the site. User can temporarily grant the site by clicking the extension icon. This is actually the default behavior for KeePass XC, what they're talking about doing here. So I can't speak to other password managers. So you'd have to go in and reload this or allow it to access it in order to get the password fill-in. So there is information about it. So just a shout out to our researcher here, which is Market Toth, and I will put this this link here in the description. MarketToth.com is his site, so you can check that, see for future updates. Excellent work on that. And again, I do still recommend password managers. You might want to think about using those browser integrations, though. Might be better just use that password manager manually until the password manager you're using happens to be fixed for this. With that, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.